page. And joining us now is Congressman Adam Schiff. Congressman, I don't even know how to form a question almost about this, because it is so unprecedented. It is so strange that in the middle of an investigation, the FBI is ordered to make public its own information inside an investigation. Is this the president trying to help all of the potential witnesses in the investigation and give them ways of getting through any possible interviews with Robert Mueller?
Well, I think it's first and foremost a way of Donald Trump helping his own defense, providing these materials to his own legal defense team. He's no doubt conferred with his lawyers what information from the investigation would be useful to you. He's conferred with his TV lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, what would be useful to you to be able to talk about on TV. And he's conferred with his allies in Congress. This takes place in this context, Lawrence. Yesterday, quite unexpectedly, totally out of the blue, the chairman of the Intel Committee, Devin Nunes, announces that he is going to release the transcripts of the witnesses we have interviewed. Now, we have been urging that that be done for months, and they have refused. We have pressed them, and they have refused, despite earlier promising to do that. Why the sudden about-face to be immediately followed by the White House ordering its own release? This is coordinated between the president and his allies, and the precedent and the policy and the norm that we've had since Watergate, that a president does not interfere in specific cases at justice, let alone in one in which the president himself may be implicated, is shattered. And in the process, important sources and important precedent of protecting those sources may be violated by this president who cares little about the national security.
Well, this is a president who violated source protections when he was inviting the Russian ambassador and foreign minister into the Oval Office in his first month in office. This is a consistent pattern with him. But what more can you tell us about what the FBI and Justice Department told you previously about why none of this should be released?
Well, a few things. With some of the materials that the president has tonight ordered to be declassified, that the FBI and Department of Justice considered this to be Gang of Eight material, meaning not only material that shouldn't be shared publicly, but material that shouldn't even be shared outside of the top officials in Congress, the chair and ranking members of the intelligence committees, as well as the speaker and leaders of both House and Senate. So it's among, in their view, material that must be closely held. And beyond that, they have said that release of it, some of it, would be a red line that they would not be willing to cross under any circumstance. So they ought to live up to that. They ought to fearlessly defend their sources. Otherwise, it will not only compromise them, but other people will be unwilling to cooperate with our intelligence agencies because they will feel they won't be protected. So the FBI, and this will be difficult for the FBI director and the head of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, both Christopher Wray and Dan Coats are going to have to stand up to this president and say no. They're not going to release material that they have committed to keep confidential to protect people. And it's going to be difficult because the president's allies in Congress are going to be threatening them with impeachment like they did with Rod Rosenstein. But you have to say no to this president, because otherwise he will continue to ask for more and more and more. And the precedent and the danger it will set will be enormously destructive.
But, Congressman, does the president have the legal authority to order this release? And if he does, wouldn't he then just fire anyone who refused?
He has the order. He has the power to order things declassified, yes. He has the power to ignore the admonitions of his own intelligence agencies. He has the power to declassify information which would jeopardize U.S. interests. And the response to that would be, I'm not going to carry out this order. I will resign if you force me to do this. Now, I would imagine the Department of Justice and the FBI will try to find some compromise where they propose redactions, which, of course, will just lead to another round of complaining by the president and his allies. So where this leads us, I don't know. Maybe this is merely a distraction from the Kavanaugh problems. But, of course, to people around the world whose identities are whether they live or die, they look at this precedent and they wonder whether they should continue to cooperate with the United States.
And Congressman, I know you don't have a vote in the Senate on Supreme Court confirmations, but I want to get your reaction to what we've learned about Brett Kavanaugh and what we have now learned about the accuser. Professor Ford asked her if she went public yesterday in the Washington Post.
Well, these are enormously disturbing allegations, and I feel for the woman who has been forced into the spotlight through this, and I can only imagine what testifying is going to be like. I don't think it's sufficient merely to hear her testimony or hear the judge's denials. I think the Senate responsibly needs to look into these allegations. We're talking about a lifetime appointment to a court which will have a decisive impact for decades, and we need to make sure that people are of upright moral character that we put on that court. So this needs to be thoroughly vetted, and those senators darn well better be respectful of this witness who did not choose to put herself out this way. Frankly, before all this, I would have voted against him for a whole variety of reasons, including his views on whether a president is above the law. But this needs to be thoroughly vetted by the Senate.
And as a former federal prosecutor yourself and an experienced would you, if you're a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, demand the testimony of the other people who were at that party, the other boy who the accuser says was in the room, for example, at the time?
I would. There are witnesses who will either corroborate or not corroborate what the witnesses are saying. It's hard to really even make the claim that you're looking into this in a serious way if you're going to leave it at he said and she said. So yes, bring the other witnesses under oath and hear what they have to say, put them under the penalty of perjury and require them to tell the truth. As our president has demonstrated time and time again, he's more than willing to make false statements publicly. He thinks that's perfectly fine. He himself has distinguished between lying to the public and lying to Bob Mueller, which is obviously terrifies him into refusing to speak to the special counsel. But let's have these other witnesses come and be placed under oath and hear what they have to say.